In the last video, we added our event snippets. There wasn't much knowledge gained in that video. This is where I'll explain all of the stuff that happened in that, all the code that we added. This is what you should be looking at. If you're not, if you're just starting again a new lesson from today and you don't see anything, then fire up your web server here in the terminal. Make sure it's working here in the browser, and open up your web app code in VS Code and get to this point, and then you can we'll commence. Great. So last time we added the events page. The events page looks like this. So the events page looks like this because we're seeing the events route, not the events route, the events view. So what does the events view look like? So I've added this stuff out of Pug. And you'll know what this looks like. Pug looks like tabbed in stuff that belongs, like everything that's tabbed in belongs to the parent above it. So we've got an extension of the layout Pug. We know what that does. The layout Pug happens on every page. We've then got a block content and a container that's going to own the stuff that we add to this page. We've got a heading that says events. We've got a new row for we've got a div that's classed as a row for the purposes of styling. We've then got the width of that row nominated, and we add a card, which is another bootstrap element that you can look up, and a card body, another bootstrap element that you can look up. So we're ready to go to add some stuff into this. We're going to then present a form. So inside the body is a form, and this code's not seen, but it's a post form. That's important to remember, and it's going to call a page called events/add. That's important to remember too. So you're not going to see this on the page, but this form says post to the page called events/add. All right. Then it says let's put an input on the page, which is going to be used for the name. It's an input control that's called name. It's going to have some placeholder text that tells the user what to do. That says type a name here. It's a text type field, so it's only going to take text, and it's required. Now that required is important too for when we actually look at it working. We'll then put a button in here that's going to submit this form, and the label on that button is going to say add. Okay, so let's just remember that for now. All right, because this lesson or this video is just about this form and what this form is going to do. Okay. Let's look at it. Let's look at the form here. So all we see is the field, and we see the button that adds it. So all we're seeing is the field, this bit here, the input field, and the button. Behind this, remember, is when you hit, it's going to say when you hit the submit button, post to the events/add page. So what's going to happen is we're going to put our event in here, name it, whatever we want. We're going to hit add. It's going to then hit the routes. So app.js says go and use a route. Now we've told it to use the route that we want it to use. It was, I closed the page, sorry, events Pug. The route that we wanted it to use was the events/add route. So go to the events and look for the add route. So let's look at the events route. There's the events route. And inside the events route, we've got a post request for the add page. Great. So that's what it's doing here. Go back, sorry. In our Pug, it says post, use a post to the add route. So when we get to the routes page, it says, well, we've got a post request and we're looking for the add route. Great. Let's use the code in here. So first thing it's going to do is check for errors. Don't worry too much about this. And if there's no errors, what it's going to do is, here we go, it's going to set up something called the event.owner. So our model owner is going to be the incoming request, the incoming user ID. So the ID of the logged in user will be stored here in our model as the event.owner ID. I'll explain this later, even further when we do a bit more databasey stuff, when we see it hidden in the database, but it's an ID. We know that every account in the database has a unique ID associated with it. Well, that's going to be stored here as the event owner. The event.name, the name required by the model, is going to be whatever is supplied here as the name field in the form. So over here in events.pug, we've got a name field. There it is. So whatever's in there, we're going to store that. Oh, I keep doing that. We're going to store that in the as the event name for now. Just store them. All we're going to say is we've got a new event. The owner is the ID of the logged in user. The name of the event is the incoming form, the field called name. And all we're going to do then is save. Mongoose is going to help us out here. We're going to save the event. And all that's going to happen then is it goes in the database. The event.save just puts it in the database. And if that works, if there's no errors, send us back to the events page. Got it? All right, so let's watch this happen as we add an event. So I'm going to add an event called long jump. Before I hit add, I'm going to open up, what was that thing called? Compass. So I'm going to open up Compass. Remember we installed this earlier. And we're going to have a look at our databases. And we're not going to see a database in here for our Jump Club app yet. Remember, we're going to connect. So we use this connection. If you don't see this, you'll need to use the connection. So you go back and have a look at how we connected to the database in an earlier video. And if you do see it, just double click it and hit connect. It's going to connect to the local version of MongoDB. Oh, I told you a lie because I said we weren't going to see a database, but of course we're going to see a database because we already added users to it under the accounts table or the accounts collection. We're going to see an events collection created the first time we add an event. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this is not here yet. The events collection is not here yet until we add one. All right, last recap. We're going to hit the events. We're going to hit the add button. It's going to take this long jump name. It's going to hit through to what. So in our code, it's going to say, because we're in this form here, it's going to say find the post and add the post request for the add page in the events route. And in the events route, we'll have, if we didn't have this, it'd break, but we do. We've got a post request for an add route. And do this code. It's going to say right here, take the user ID of the logged in user, that's aa@aa.com, and take the event name and save those into the database. Now the other two fields, the updated and the created user timestamp that are required by our model, they'll just happen. They'll just be whatever time we hit the button. Okay, so we're going to hit it now and we're going to check our database. So hit add. Oh, I need to be logged in to do that. That's great. You remember that that's part of our route. We said here, if they're not logged in, then don't let them do anything at all. So that's great. We need to be logged in, and of course we do, because if we're not logged in, we can't have a user ID to add into our. Okay. We can't have a user ID to add into our event. So the long jump was our event. I'm back here. I'm logged in this time though, and I'm going to hit add. Great. We saw something happen over here. We just saw this stuff happen. The post request was made to the web server. We saw that here. We can see that in the records. And if we check our database now by just hitting this refresh button up here, this little circular arrow thing, there we go. If I open up the Jump database now, of course we see an events collection that has one event in it, which is called the long jump. This is the owner ID, the object ID of the owner, which is me. It's given this event a unique ID, and it created the timestamps automatically. Great. If we were to, we can use this again and again. Now that we're logged in, we can put the long jump, we can put the high jump here, and we can add another event. Fantastic. And we'll see that end up in our database as well. Terrific. We've got it all. This is document modify. That's because I was double clicking around in here. I'm just going to cancel this. You can actually modify your records right here in Compass, but we don't want to do that, so I just cancel that. We've now got two records, a long jump and a high jump record, which are in the database.